Osiris, the Coronation of the Lord of the Underworld. Chapter 1. Osiris, the Benevolent King. In the dawn of ages, when the Nile's flood still seemed a mystery to mortals and the desert winds whispered the names of gods, Egypt was blessed with a ruler unlike any other, Osiris, son of the sky goddess, Nut, and the earth god, Geb. From the moment of his birth, Osiris radiated majesty. His eyes held the calm of the Nile's eternal flow, and his voice carried the strength of the desert wind. Among the children of Nut, he was chosen by fate to bear the double crown and unite Egypt under justice and order. Where once chaos reigned, Osiris brought harmony. He gave the people laws so they would not wander blindly in strife. He taught them the arts of farming, showing them how to sow grain in the fertile soil left behind by the Nile's inundation. The people learned to brew beer, to cultivate wheat and barley, and to shape the land with irrigation. In the shadow of his rule, hunger vanished and the land flourished. Osiris was not merely a king, he was the very embodiment of Ma'at, the principle of truth, balance, and cosmic order. By his side stood Isis, his queen and sister, a goddess of wisdom and magic. Together, they were a pair of divine rulers, blending strength with compassion. The people adored them, offering prayers, not out of fear, but of gratitude. Temples rose along the banks of the Nile, their walls inscribed with hymns to the benevolent king. But not all looked upon Osiris with love. In the shadows lurked Set, Osiris's own brother, the god of storms, deserts, and chaos. While Osiris brought green fields and harvests, Set's dominion was barren wasteland, a realm of scorching winds and red sand. Jealousy burned in his heart, for where Osiris was praised as bringer of life, Set was whispered of as destroyer. And so, as Osiris's reign blossomed, Set's envy grew like a serpent, coiling tighter around his soul. Yet Osiris did not see the storm gathering. He trusted his brother, blind to the hatred that simmered beneath Set's crimson gaze. His heart was fixed only on raising Egypt to glory. He journeyed far across the land, spreading his teachings. It is said that Osiris even left Egypt for a time, traveling to distant nations, carrying the gifts of agriculture and justice wherever he set foot. Kings and tribes bowed before him, not with fear of conquest, but in reverence to his wisdom. When he returned, Egypt shone like no other land beneath the sun. Cities thrived along the Nile, granaries overflowed, and festivals honored the balance of life and death. The people sang, "Osiris, the Green One, Lord of Eternity, your hand lifts the harvest, your heart guides the law. Blessed be our King, for in your reign we know no hunger, no war." But where men saw paradise, Set saw humiliation. His deserts lay empty, while Osiris's fields bloomed. His voice thundered in storms, but it was Osiris's calm that ruled the hearts of men. To Set, every hymn sung in Osiris's name was an insult, every temple stone a reminder that he lived in his brother's shadow. Still, Osiris remained unaware. He looked upon Set with brotherly love, offering him places of honor at feasts, sharing victories, even trusting him with duties of the realm. The gods above, however, watched with unease. Thoth, the wise scribe of the gods, whispered warnings of imbalance. Hathor, goddess of joy, wept for the shadow of blood she saw on the horizon. And Ra, the great sun god, kept his silence, for he knew the threads of destiny were already woven. For though Osiris was just, even the greatest kings cannot escape fate. Thus begins the tragedy, the tale of a king who brought life and order, yet whose own life would be undone by betrayal. In the glow of Osiris's golden age, Egypt stood on the brink of darkness, though none but the gods could see it coming. For Set's envy was no longer a whisper in his heart. It was a storm, gathering strength, preparing to strike. And so, while Osiris reigned in peace, teaching his people the ways of truth and balance, the seeds of his downfall were already sown. The Nile flowed, the crops grew, and the songs of praise filled the air. But soon those songs would turn to cries of grief, and the benevolent king would learn that even gods are not safe from treachery. Chapter 2: The Jealousy of Set. In the brilliance of Osiris's reign, Egypt thrived as never before. The Nile swelled with abundance. The people rejoiced in festivals, and temples echoed with hymns of gratitude. Osiris had become not only a king, but a living symbol of life's renewal. His wisdom stretched beyond Egypt's borders, and his name was honored in distant lands. Yet, among the gods, one heart boiled with bitterness: Set, Osiris's own brother. Set was born of the same divine bloodline, son of Nut and Geb, but his nature was far from gentle. He was the god of storms and deserts, master of barren sands and howling winds. Where Osiris brought harvest, Set ruled over desolation. Where Osiris embodied harmony, Set carried chaos. The people feared him, offering prayers, not out of love, but desperation, hoping to avert his wrath. Every song to Osiris felt to Set like a dagger. Every temple carved in Osiris's honor was a wound to his pride. In his heart, a single thought grew ever louder: why should my brother reign, while I am left in the shadows? At first, Set's jealousy festered in silence. He watched as Osiris ruled with Isis by his side, as priests praised the benevolent king, as mortals lifted their arms to the sky in gratitude for the Nile's floods. Yet silence could not contain him for long. The god of storms was not made for patience. His envy became anger. His anger hardened into hatred, and hatred demanded action. But Set was cunning. He did not strike immediately. Instead, he cloaked his fury behind false smiles. At feasts, he drank wine with Osiris. At councils, he spoke words of loyalty. He stood beside his brother in ceremonies, masking his resentment beneath gestures of kinship. Yet, in secret, his heart plotted betrayal. Whispers spread among the gods that Set's eyes burned with envy. Thoth, wise and watchful, warned Isis that Set's heart was not to be trusted. But Isis, though wary, could not pierce the full depth of his malice. Osiris himself, ever benevolent, dismissed the warnings. "He is my brother," Osiris said. "He would not harm me," but the gods knew otherwise. They had seen jealousy undo kings before, and the wheel of fate was already turning. Set's bitterness grew sharper with each passing day. He saw Osiris travel among mortals, bringing them law, teaching them cultivation, uniting them in prosperity. Mortals adored him as if he were the sun itself. Set, in contrast, was invoked only when storms raged or when men crossed the desert, praying not for his blessing, but for his restraint. "Osiris has stolen the hearts of men," Set muttered to himself. "Their harvests, their songs, their very lives are his to command. And I, god of storms, I am left forgotten. If Egypt sees him as order, then I shall be chaos. If they call him life, I shall be death." The more he brooded, the more his envy twisted into obsession. Set began to dream of a world without Osiris, a throne left empty for him to seize. His imagination conjured scenes of power, Egypt bowing before him, temples built in his name, mortals trembling in awe of the god of storms. He envisioned Isis forced to kneel, Horus unborn, and Osiris cast into silence. But envy is a poison that seeks allies. Set did not plot alone. In the shadows, he gathered conspirators, gods and men who chafed beneath Osiris's rule. Some were deceived, others seduced by promises of power. Slowly, Set wove his web of treachery, binding allies to his cause. Still, he bided his time, for Osiris was loved too deeply, too widely, to be overthrown by brute force. The god-king's power was not only divine, but rooted in the adoration of his people. To kill him would require more than strength. It would require deceit, as subtle as it was deadly. Thus, the jealousy of Set, once a mere ember, flared into a storm. His envy became the foundation of his schemes, his hatred the hammer with which he would shatter Egypt's harmony. And as the Nile flowed on, carrying life to the fields, Set's heart carried only one purpose: to see Osiris brought low. The benevolent king's days of peace were numbered, though he did not yet know it. In the heavens, Ra, the sun god, watched in silence, unwilling to interfere, for destiny had set its course. The gods braced themselves for tragedy, for they knew that jealousy, once unleashed, spares no king, even one as beloved as Osiris. Chapter 3: The Treacherous Banquet. The plan of Set, god of storms and deserts, had ripened like a venomous fruit. His envy of Osiris had consumed him, and now it demanded action. But Set was cunning. He knew brute force could not topple a king beloved by both gods and mortals. To overthrow Osiris, he would need guile, a plot wrapped in ceremony and sealed with betrayal. So Set conceived of a banquet, a grand feast, to honor Osiris, filled with wine, music, and revelry. The halls would be adorned with gold, the tables laden with delicacies, and all would appear to be a gesture of brotherly love. But beneath this facade of generosity lurked treachery, for Set had prepared a trap, one that would ensnare Osiris, not with sword or spear, but with deception. The invitation. When word of the banquet spread, the gods and nobles rejoiced. At last, they thought, Set has cast aside his envy. He seeks to honor his brother. Osiris himself was touched, for he believed in reconciliation and harmony. My brother shows kindness at last, he told Isis. Perhaps peace may dwell between us. Isis, wise and cautious, hesitated. She remembered Thoth's warnings and had glimpsed the storm in Set's eyes. Be wary, my husband, she urged. Set does not give gifts without reason. But Osiris, ever trusting, smiled gently. He is my brother. Surely he means me no harm. And so Osiris accepted the invitation, walking willingly into the storm that had long been brewing. The banquet begins. The hall of Set gleamed with splendor. Torches blazed upon pillars carved with scenes of gods and kings. Tables groaned beneath roasted meats, fruits glistening like jewels, and goblets overflowing with wine. Musicians played harps and flutes, and dancers swirled in silken garments. Set greeted Osiris with open arms. Brother, he said, his voice smooth as oil, tonight we celebrate your greatness. Tonight Egypt honors its king. His smile was wide, his eyes aflame with false warmth. Osiris, noble and unsuspecting, took his place at the head of the table. Around him sat gods, lords, and courtiers, all feasting, all praising the king who had brought them order and abundance. The air was thick with laughter, but beneath it ran the current of Set's deceit. For, hidden in a corner of the hall, stood a chest magnificent and gleaming, crafted from the finest cedar, inlaid with gold and silver, its lid polished like a mirror. It was no ordinary chest, but a masterpiece designed to fit the exact form of one man, Osiris himself. The deadly game. As the banquet reached its height, Set rose, goblet in hand. "Friends," he declared, "let us play a game to mark this joyous night. Behold this chest, a gift fit for a king. Whoever among us may lie within it most perfectly shall have it as his own." Gasps and laughter filled the hall. The chest was splendid, its beauty undeniable. One by one, guests came forth to try their luck, climbing into the chest, but none fit its measure. Some were too tall, others too broad, some too short. All were turned away with good humor. At last, Set turned to his brother. "Surely, mighty Osiris, the chest was made for none but you. Come, try it, and if it fits, it shall be yours." Osiris, warmed by wine and lulled by false merriment, stepped forward. He admired the chest, ran his hands along its gilded edges, and smiled at his brother's generosity. Without hesitation, he lay down inside, and as he did, the chest embraced him perfectly, as though crafted by fate itself. The trap springs in an instant. Set's mask fell away. His face twisted into triumph and fury. With a shout, he slammed the lid shut. From the shadows, conspirators rushed forth, hammering nails, sealing the chest tight. Molten lead was poured along its edges, binding it inescapably. The laughter in the hall turned to horror. Cries rose as Osiris struggled within, his voice muffled, his strength trapped by the coffin's embrace. Isis leaped to her feet, but the conspirators restrained her. Set's laughter thundered like a storm over the desert. At last, he roared, "At last, the throne is mine." With brute strength, Set and his allies lifted the coffin and carried it to the Nile. They hurled it into the river, the waters swallowing it whole, carrying Osiris away into darkness. The silence of the banquet, the hall that moments before had sung with music and joy, now echoed with dread. Isis wept, her cries piercing the night. The gods sat in stunned silence, powerless before the treachery that had unfolded. The Nile flowed on, carrying its sacred king toward an uncertain fate. Set stood tall, triumphant. "The age of Osiris is over," he declared. "Now Egypt shall know the rule of Seta, god of storms, the master of chaos." But though Osiris was gone, his spirit was not extinguished. The Nile carried him, but destiny had yet more chapters to write. Isis's love, Horus's birth, and the vengeance of the gods would rise from this night of betrayal. Chapter 4. The Coffin in the Nile. The Nile, lifeblood of Egypt, flowed gently under the moonlight, its waters silvered by the glow of the stars. Yet, on this night, the sacred river bore a sorrowful burden. The coffin of Osiris, sealed by treachery and betrayal. Set's laughter still echoed in the halls, but the Nile carried away his crime, cradling the body of the rightful king in its eternal current. The journey of the coffin, the chest, drifted downstream, carried past fertile fields and villages, where farmers labored unaware of the tragedy that had befallen their king. Cattle lowed at the riverbank, children played in the reeds, and priests sang hymns of praise to Osiris, oblivious that their god and king lay imprisoned in the waters they worshipped. The river embraced the coffin tenderly, protecting it from rocks and rapids, as though it too mourned the fall of Egypt's ruler. Night after night, the chest floated, hidden by reeds, carried ever farther from the land where Osiris had ruled with justice. At last, the Nile bore the coffin to the edge of the delta, where the river surrendered its waters to the vastness of the sea. The waves took it, pulling it toward distant shores unknown. The grief of Isis back in Egypt. Isis wandered the palace halls in despair. Her cries echoed against stone walls, her hair unbound, her garments torn. "My lord, my husband, my king, where are you?" She wept. She questioned the courtiers, the servants, even the gods themselves, but none could tell her where the coffin had gone. The Nile was vast, its currents strong, and her beloved Osiris was lost to its endless embrace. Isis's grief was not the grief of a widow alone, but of a queen whose kingdom had been shattered. She felt the weight of her people's sorrow, for, with Osiris gone, Egypt's harmony faltered. Crops withered, disputes rose, and shadows lengthened across the two lands. But Isis was not a woman to surrender. She was the goddess of magic, wisdom, and devotion, and she vowed she would not rest until she found her husband. The search begins clothed in mourning. Isis left the palace, wandering along the banks of the Nile. She walked barefoot across sands and marshes, through villages and temples, asking all she met if they had seen the coffin borne by the current. The peasants bowed before her, moved by her sorrow, and offered what little knowledge they could. Some had seen a strange box drifting past, gleaming beneath the sun. Others spoke of reeds crushed where something heavy had passed. Guided by these fragments, Isis pressed on, her resolve unshaken. By day she followed the river's course. By night she lifted her voice in lament, a song so mournful that even the gods paused to listen. Birds fell silent, the wind stilled, and the stars themselves seemed to weep as Isis's grief poured forth. The coffin's resting place, the Nile's journey, ended where the river gave itself to the sea. The coffin drifted across the waters until it came to rest upon the coast of Byblus, in a distant land beyond Egypt's borders. There, the waves cast it ashore beneath the branches of a tamarisk tree. The tree, sacred and strong, felt the presence of Osiris within the chest. It grew swiftly, wrapping its trunk around the coffin, enfolding it in bark and branches, as though to protect the fallen king from further harm. Its crown rose high, and its fragrance filled the air, a living monument to the god it now sheltered. In time, the people of Byblus marveled at the miraculous tree. Its beauty was unmatched, and its trunk glowed faintly with divine radiance. The local king, seeking to honor the gods, ordered the tree cut and its trunk fashioned into a great pillar for his palace hall. Thus, the coffin of Osiris was hidden once more, encased within the very heart of the tree, standing in plain sight, yet unseen. The whisper of destiny back in Egypt, Isis felt the faint pull of magic, a whisper carried on the wind. The gods do not abandon their chosen, and the bond between Isis and Osiris stretched across land and sea. In dreams, she saw the pillar, the tree that guarded her husband. She awoke with renewed strength. "The Nile has carried him far," she murmured, "but love will lead me to him." So Isis prepared for a journey beyond Egypt's borders. Two lands, foreign and strange, where the fate of Osiris awaited her discovery. Chapter 5. Isis's grief and quest. The palace of Egypt had fallen silent. No laughter echoed through its courts. No songs rose from its halls. Where once Osiris had ruled with justice and kindness, there lingered only shadows and whispers. At the heart of this silence stood Isis, his devoted wife and queen, her face veiled with tears, her heart shattered by grief, the weight of sorrow. Isis sat by the empty throne, her hands clutching the crook and flail Osiris had left behind. Each night she wept, her voice carrying through the darkness, lamenting the loss of her beloved. "Where are you, my king? Where are you, my love? The two lands are broken without you." Her sorrow was not hers alone. Across Egypt, the people felt the absence of Osiris. The Nile, though it still flowed, seemed less generous. Fields yielded less grain, and disputes broke out where once peace had reigned. Farmers raised prayers to the gods, and priests wept in temples, for the heart of their land was gone. But Isis, though overwhelmed by grief, refused to let despair consume her. Her love for Osiris burned brighter than her sorrow, and so she resolved. She would not rest, she would not cease, until she found her husband's body and restored him to life. The gathering of allies Isis began her quest alone, but soon she was joined by her sister, Nephthys, wife of Set. Though bound by marriage to the betrayer, Nephthys's heart was loyal to Isis and Osiris. She came in secret, bringing words of comfort and vows of aid. "My sister," Nephthys said, "I cannot undo what my husband has done, but I will stand with you. Together we will find Osiris, no matter how far the river has carried him." The two sisters, embodiments of devotion and loyalty, set forth together. With them came Anubis, the jackal-headed god, born of Nephthys but devoted to Osiris. Wise in the ways of death and burial, Anubis promised his guidance. Thus, Isis was no longer alone. She was surrounded by kin and by faith. The wandering queen, Isis, wandered far along the Nile, traveling through villages and marshlands, seeking every trace of the coffin. Disguised as a mortal woman, she passed among farmers and fishermen, asking with quiet voice, "Have you seen a chest of cedar, adorned with gold, drifting on the river?" Some shook their heads in ignorance, but others offered fragments of truth. "Yes, lady, I saw it gliding past beneath the reeds." Or, "I heard tell of a box borne toward the delta, gleaming in the sun." Each word was a spark to guide her path. At night, when she rested by the riverbank, Isis lifted her voice in song. Her lament was so pure, so piercing, that even the wind carried it across the land. Birds ceased their flight to listen, and even the crocodiles of the Nile lay still, touched by her grief. The power of devotion. But Isis was not only a queen and mourner, she was the greatest enchantress of Egypt. With her knowledge of magic, she wove spells to quicken her search. She spoke words over the waters, calling to the river itself. "O Nile, holy river, who nourishes the land, carry to me the truth. Where lies my lord, my king? Whisper to me of his resting place." The waters murmured in reply, guiding her step by step, farther and farther from Egypt's heart. She followed the current into foreign lands, driven by love and guided by magic. The vision of the tree. One night, as Isis lay exhausted beneath the stars, she received a vision. In her dreams, a voice came to her, soft as the wind, yet strong as thunder. It spoke of a tree in a distant land, a great tamarisk whose trunk glowed with divine light. Within its heart, the voice said, "Lay the coffin she sought." Isis awoke with new resolve. "The river has not betrayed me," she whispered. "It has borne him to a place where the tree guards him still. I will go, even to the edge of the world, to bring him home." the queen sets forth thus. Isis's grief was transformed into strength. No longer did she wander aimlessly. Now her path was set. Across deserts and seas she would travel, her heart unyielding, her spirit unbroken. For love such as hers could not be drowned by rivers or hidden by trees. And so began the greatest quest of Isis, the search for Osiris, a journey that would test her endurance, her magic, and her very soul. Chapter 6: The Finding of the Body. The journey of Isis led her beyond the familiar fields of the Nile and into foreign lands where strange tongues were spoken and customs differed from those of Egypt. Yet her purpose never wavered. Guided by visions and whispers carried on the wind, she pressed on, seeking the coffin that held her beloved Osiris, the shores of Byblus. After many days and nights, Isis came to the coast of Byblus, a kingdom far from her own. There, the sea winds carried the scent of cedar, and the people told tales of a wondrous tree that had sprung up overnight. Its trunk had grown vast and strong, and within its heart there was said to be a mystery something that gave it an otherworldly glow. Isis's heart stirred at these words, for she knew her visions had spoken truth. "The coffin is here," she whispered. "The river and the sea have carried him to this place, and the tree has hidden him." The tree and the pillar. Isis made her way to the palace of Byblus, where the king had taken the great tamarisk tree and cut it down. From its trunk, he had fashioned a magnificent pillar for his hall, a symbol of strength and divine favor. None knew that within the pillar, encased in wood and resin, lay the coffin of Osiris. When Isis beheld the pillar, she felt the pull of her husband's spirit. Though the wood concealed him, her heart knew that Osiris was there, trapped but waiting. Tears filled her eyes, but she concealed her grief, for she must act with patience and cunning. Isis in disguise, disguised as a humble woman, Isis entered the court of Byblus. Her beauty and dignity, though veiled, could not be hidden. The queen of Byblus, Astarte, welcomed her into service, struck by the stranger's grace. Isis became nursemaid to the queen's children, tending them with kindness and gentle care. At night, however, Isis revealed her power. She lit the palace with her magic, singing lullabies that wove enchantments of healing and protection. The children thrived under her care, and the court marveled at the blessings she seemed to bring. But her purpose remained fixed: to free her husband from the pillar. The fire ritual. One night, as the children slept, Isis performed a secret ritual. She placed one of the young princes upon the fire, intending to burn away his mortal weakness and make him immortal. She sang incantations as the flames licked harmlessly at the child's body, reshaping his destiny. But the queen of Byblus stumbled upon the scene and cried out in terror. "What witchcraft is this?" she shouted, pulling her child away. Isis then revealed herself in her full radiance, casting aside her disguise. Her divine form shone with power, her face brilliant as the moon, her voice echoing with authority. "Fear not," she declared. "I am Isis of Egypt, wife of Osiris, mother of Horus, mistress of magic. I seek not your throne nor your children, but the body of my husband, hidden within your palace." The truth revealed. The king and queen, awestruck and trembling, fell to their knees. They had not known the stranger in their halls was a goddess. With reverence, they confessed, "Yes, great lady, the tree you speak of, we cut down. It became this pillar that adorns our hall. Whatever lies within, it is yours to claim." With solemnity, they ordered the pillar to be cut open. As the wood was split, the scent of cedar filled the air, and within was revealed the coffin of Osiris, still intact, still sealed in gold and resin. Isis fell to her knees, her hands trembling as she touched the chest. At last, she whispered, "I have found you, my beloved." Her tears fell upon the coffin's surface, consecrating it with her devotion. The return to Egypt, with the blessing of the king and queen of Byblus, Isis took the coffin and set sail for Egypt. The sea carried her gently, as though even the waters themselves honored her quest. She guarded the chest with fierce devotion, her eyes never leaving it, her heart singing in both grief and hope. Though she had found her husband's body, her journey was not yet complete, for Osiris lay still within the coffin, silent and lifeless. Isis's magic would soon be tested to its limits, for she would attempt what no goddess had done before, to breathe life into the dead. Chapter 7. The murder repeated. The waves of the sea carried Isis back to Egypt, her arms wrapped protectively around the coffin that held her beloved. Though grief weighed heavily upon her, hope now glimmered in her heart, for she had found Osiris, and with her magic she dreamed of restoring him to life. But Set, ever watchful, was not blind to her actions. His spies whispered of Isis's return, and his heart burned with rage when he learned that Osiris's body had been found. He had cast his brother into the Nile to be lost forever, yet Isis's devotion had undone his work. Fury and fear consumed him, for Set knew that as long as Osiris's body remained whole, his rule was threatened. Isis in hiding. Isis, knowing the danger that Set posed, hid the coffin deep within the marshes of the delta. She chose a secluded place, surrounded by tall papyrus reeds, where no mortal dared to wander. There she kept vigil over her husband, pouring her love and her magic into preserving his form. She built a shrine around the coffin, lit lamps that burned without ceasing, and sang laments that carried through the night. Nephthys came to her side, and together the two sisters wept, their voices blending in a hymn of sorrow that reached the heavens. But even as Isis guarded the coffin, she knew she must act swiftly. For Set's malice was unrelenting, and the storm god would not rest while Osiris lingered in the world of the living. The discovery one moonless night, as Isis prepared her incantations, Set prowled the marshes. Drawn by whispers of magic and the faint glow of lamps, he found the hidden shrine. His eyes blazed with hatred when he saw the coffin resting in the reeds. "Again he rises to defy me," Set snarled. "But I will not be cheated. This time there shall be no return for Osiris." The second betrayal with savage fury, Set tore open the coffin. He dragged Osiris's lifeless body into the night, his laughter echoing like thunder. Then, in an act of cruelty that would forever scar the world, he cut Osiris into 14 pieces, scattering them across the land of Egypt. Some he cast into the Nile, others he buried in the sands, others he hid in secret places known only to him. Each fragment of Osiris was a symbol of Set's triumph, a challenge to Isis's devotion, and a wound upon the two lands. When Isis returned to the shrine and found the coffin empty, her cries of anguish shook the heavens. She tore her garments, she beat her breast, and she cursed the name of Set with all the power of her grief. "Monster, traitor, no crime is too great for you, yet I will not yield. I will find him again, even if I must search to the ends of the earth." The quest renewed. Thus began Isis's second great quest, the search for the scattered pieces of Osiris. From village to village she wandered, guided by the whispers of spirits, the cries of the Nile, and the loyalty of her allies. Nephthys walked beside her, and Anubis, the jackal-headed god, took upon himself the sacred duty of guarding the remains when they were found. In time, Thoth, the god of wisdom, lent his aid. Everywhere she went, Isis asked the people of Egypt, "Have you seen a fragment of my Lord?" And when she found one, she wept and rejoiced, for each piece was a step toward making her husband whole again. The scattered king. In the fields of the delta, she found his legs. In the desert sands, she uncovered his arms. From the riverbanks, she retrieved his heart, still pulsing faintly with the magic of life. Piece by piece, she gathered him, cradling each fragment as though it were her child. Yet one piece eluded her, the phallus of Osiris, which Set had cast into the Nile and which the fish had devoured. This loss weighed heavily upon Isis, for without it, the body could not be restored to full wholeness. But Isis, mistress of magic, was not defeated. With her spells, she fashioned a replacement, divine and eternal, that would serve the purpose of creation. Thus, even Set's cruelty could not extinguish the power of Osiris. The triumph of devotion at last. Isis had gathered all she could. With Nephthys, Anubis, and Thoth, she began the sacred rites that would restore Osiris. They washed and anointed his body, wrapped him in linen, and performed the first rites of mummification. Anubis's hands were steady as he preserved the flesh. Thoth's voice was steady as he chanted the words, and Isis's tears fell like rain, consecrating the body with her devotion. Set had murdered his brother twice, but even so, Isis's love prevailed. Osiris was whole again, not as he had been, but as something new, something eternal. His path would no longer be in the world of the living, but his destiny was not yet ended. Chapter 8. Isis and Nephthys. Lament. The night was heavy with silence, broken only by the sound of Isis's weeping. She knelt beside the mummified body of Osiris, her trembling hands resting on the wrappings that bound him. Though the sacred rites had preserved his form, the spark of life was gone. Her heart ached with the weight of grief, yet also burned with the fire of devotion. Beside her stood Nephthys, the sister who had shared both her sorrow and her search. Together they had wandered across Egypt, gathering the scattered pieces of the king who had once ruled the two lands. And now, as the work of restoration ended, their lament began. The hymn of grief, the sisters raised their voices in unison, a mournful song that pierced the veil of night. Their lament was not only for Osiris, but for Egypt itself, for the order of the world, for all that had been shattered by Set's cruelty. "Awake, O Lord of the two lands," Isis cried. "Return to us, O King, whose heart is noble and whose words are truth. Do not abandon your throne to the usurper. Do not leave your people to the chaos of the storm." Nephthys lifted her arms to the heavens, her voice echoing like the wail of the desert wind. "O Osiris, great in strength, gentle in justice, why have you been taken from us? The earth is dark without your light. The Nile mourns without your presence." Their words carried far into the night, reaching the ears of gods and mortals alike. Even the stars seemed to weep with them, their cold fire trembling in the black sky. The vigil of the sisters. Through the long hours of darkness, the two sisters kept watch. Isis burned incense to drive away the spirits of decay, while Nephthys fanned the air with her wings, guarding the body from harm. Together they circled Osiris, chanting spells of protection and summoning divine power. At times, their lament turned to anger. Set, murderer and usurper, Your crimes shall not go unpunished. You may break his body, but you cannot break his spirit. You may scatter his flesh, but his soul shall endure beyond your reach. At times, their song was tender, filled with memories of Osiris's reign. You were the king who fed the hungry, the judge who listened with fairness, the brother who brought peace where there was strife. How can Egypt live without you? The coming of Anubis and Thoth as dawn approached, two figures joined the lament. Anubis, jackal-headed guardian of the dead, came silently, his hands carrying the tools of embalming. He bowed before Isis and Nephthys, his voice low. Your cries have shaken the duat. I shall stand as protector of this body, and no harm shall touch him while I remain. Then came Thoth, Lord of Wisdom, carrying a scroll of divine words. He spoke with calm authority. Your lament is heard. Your devotion is greater than death itself. The order of Mat shall not be destroyed, for Osiris's destiny has not ended. His path lies beyond the living. In a realm yet unclaimed, Isis lifted her tear-streaked face, and though sorrow still consumed her, hope flickered in her heart. The power of the lament, the voices of Isis and Nephthys, rose once more, stronger than before. They circled Osiris's body, their chants weaving a spell of immense power. With every word, they bound him to eternity, not to the fragile life of the mortal world, but to a life unending in the realm of the dead. Their lament transformed into a hymn of resurrection. Rise, O Osiris, not to the earth of men, but to the eternal throne in the duat. Be judge of the departed, be king of the unseen, be the eternal flame that Set cannot extinguish. The air grew heavy with magic. The wrappings around Osiris glowed faintly, and though his body lay still, his spirit stirred. He would not walk again among the living, but he would endure as a god eternal. The birth of hope. As the ritual ended, Isis and Nephthys fell silent. Their tears still flowed, but now they were not only tears of sorrow, they were tears of triumph, for they knew that Osiris had been given a new destiny, greater even than the throne he had once held in Egypt. Isis whispered softly, as though to her husband's spirit, "You shall live again, not here, but in the world beyond. And from your union with me shall come a son one who will avenge you, one who will restore justice to the two lands. Set shall not reign forever." Nephthys placed her hand upon Isis's shoulder. "Together we have wept, and together we shall see the dawn of vengeance. Horus will rise, and through him Osiris shall live on." Chapter 9. The resurrection of Osiris. The lament of Isis and Nephthys still lingered in the air, echoing like waves upon the banks of the Nile. Their grief had bound Osiris to eternity, and yet their devotion summoned more than remembrance. It summoned life itself, if only for a moment. For in the depth of sorrow, Isis conceived of a plan, a daring act that would defy death and restore her beloved, if only long enough to fulfill his destiny. The divine spell, Thoth, the keeper of sacred wisdom, looked upon Isis with solemn eyes. "Your lament has been heard across the cosmos. If you would see Osiris stir once more, even for a fleeting time, I shall guide you. But know this, his resurrection will not return him to the throne of Egypt. His body is broken, and the world of the living is no longer his domain. Yet through your union, a seed may be planted, a legacy no death can erase." Isis bowed her head in reverence, yet determination blazed within her. "I will endure any trial, speak any spell, bear any burden. Only let Osiris rise once more, so that Egypt's hope may be rekindled. With Thoth's guidance, she gathered the fragments of divine speech, words older than the world, and began the incantation. Her voice, trembling with power, called upon the breath of Ra, the waters of Nun, and the eternal flame of life itself. The moment of resurrection, the air thickened. The stars themselves seemed to bend low to listen. Isis spread her wings, vast, shimmering with light, and hovered over the lifeless body of her husband. Her feathers fanned the breath of divinity into his nostrils. The wrappings of the mummy quivered. Osiris stirred, his chest heaving once with the faint echo of life. His eyes, dark as the night sky, opened and found Isis gazing down at him, her tears falling like dew upon his face. "Beloved," Osiris whispered, his voice faint but filled with love eternal. "Your devotion has pierced the veil of death itself. I feel the warmth of life again, though I know it cannot endure." Isis pressed her lips to his forehead. "It need not endure forever. Even one night is enough, if it grants us the gift of the future." The sacred union wrapped in the silence of the night. Isis and Osiris embraced. It was not a union of flesh alone, but of spirit and eternity. From their love was conceived a child, one who would carry the flame of vengeance and the promise of renewal. The gods bore witness. Thoth inscribed the event upon his scroll, declaring, "From this union shall be born Horus, the Avenger, the falcon who will reclaim the throne." Anubis, standing guard, lowered his head in solemn respect, knowing that the balance of Mat had been set upon its course. As dawn's light broke upon the horizon, Osiris's strength waned. The borrowed breath of life began to fade, and the stillness of death reclaimed him. Yet this time there was no despair, for his resurrection had fulfilled its purpose. The farewell Isis clung to him, her tears falling once more, though now they were mingled with hope. "You shall not vanish, my love. Though you depart to the Duat, your spirit will reign forever, and your son shall carry your justice into the world." Osiris smiled faintly, his hand resting upon her own. "Isis, queen of magic, mother of hope, your love has conquered even death. Though I leave this realm, I ascend to another. There I shall reign as judge of souls, lord of eternity. And I shall await the day when our sun rises to strike down Set." His voice faded, his eyes closed. His body lay still once more, but his spirit had already crossed the threshold into the Duat. The ascension of Osiris. At that moment, the heavens trembled. A great light descended, brighter than the sun, and Osiris's soul rose in majesty. He was crowned not as king of Egypt, but as ruler of the afterlife. No longer a mortal king, Osiris had become Divina, God eternal. The gods proclaimed, "Osiris, Lord of the Duat, Judge of the dead, eternal king beyond time." From that day forward, Osiris was no longer bound to the throne of men. His throne lay in the unseen world, where he would weigh the hearts of mortals against the feather of Mat. He had died, yet he had triumphed, for his name and his power would never perish. The seed of hope. As Osiris ascended, Isis pressed her hand to her womb, where the spark of new life stirred. She knew that within her grew the heir of Egypt, the avenger who would confront Set, the falcon who would restore justice to the two lands. Nephis stood beside her, whispering, "Your son will rise as Horus, the hawk of the skies, and though Set may rage, his reign shall not endure. Through Horus, Osiris will live again." Isis lifted her gaze to the horizon, where the sun rose in crimson fire. She whispered, "Horus shall come, and with him the world shall be made whole." Chapter 10. The conception of Horus. The world had grown silent after the ascension of Osiris. His body, now still and sacred, had been laid to rest with rites divine. Yet within the stillness, a new promise stirred, a promise that Isis carried within her. For the brief resurrection of her husband had not been in vain. From their union came the seed of hope, the conception of Horus, the falcon child, the avenger of his father. The hidden spark Isis kept her secret close to her heart. She alone knew that Osiris lived on within her womb, his spirit reborn as a child yet to come. The gods had whispered of this destiny, but now it was more than prophesy, it was reality. In the quiet chambers where she rested, Isis placed her hands upon her belly and spoke softly, "Grow, my son, within me. You are the breath of Osiris, the heir of Egypt, the one who will rise to strike down Set. Though your father reigns in the Duat, his power flows through your veins." Nephthys stood beside her sister, a guardian and confidant. "You must hide your child, Isis," she warned. "Set's eyes are everywhere. If he learns of Horus, he will seek to destroy him before he takes his first breath." Isis nodded, for she knew the danger was real. Set, the usurper, would never allow the son of Osiris to live freely. The wrath of Set far across the Nile. Set brooded upon his throne. Though he had seized power by force, he could not quiet the whispers of discontent among the people, nor silence the gods who muttered against him in secret. One night, as he dreamed, a vision came to him. He saw a falcon soaring across the sky, its wings blotting out the sun, its eyes burning with vengeance. He woke in terror, his heart pounding, for he knew this was no mere dream. It was a warning. "Osiris may be gone," he muttered to himself, "but his line is not ended. I must destroy whatever seed he has left behind, lest it rise against me." Thus Set sent forth spies, demons of the desert wind and serpents of the night, to scour Egypt in search of Isis and any child she might bear. The flight of Isis forewarned by Thoth, Isis fled from the palaces of the Nile and sought refuge in the marshes of the delta, where papyrus reeds grew tall and the waters hid her from pursuit. There, in a humble hut woven from reeds, she concealed herself. By day, she prayed to the gods for protection. By night, she lit small lamps upon the water, guiding the spirits who guarded her unborn child. The creatures of the swamp became her allies. Crocodiles swam silently to block Set's hunters, and snakes coiled at her doorway, hissing warnings to intruders. Even the wind seemed to shield her, carrying her enemies astray. Nephthys came often, bringing food and comfort, her loyalty unshaken. "The gods are with you, sister," she whispered. "Do not fear. Your son will be born, and he will grow strong." The blessing of the gods. One night, as the moon shone silver over the marshes, Isis received a vision. Hathor, goddess of love and joy, appeared before her in radiant light. She placed her hand upon Isis's womb and declared, "This child is blessed. He is the heir of Osiris, the falcon of the skies. No force of Set shall extinguish his flame. Raise him in secret, but know that his destiny is written among the stars." Then came Coman, the divine potter who shaped life upon his wheel. He appeared in the hut, holding clay shaped like a falcon chick. "I mold his spirit as I mold the rivers," he said, "strong and unyielding. His wings will carry him higher than any before." Finally, Thoth returned, inscribing the child's name upon his scroll. Herusas Hodus, son of Isis. So it shall be, he declared, that Horus will one day stand before Set, and the throne of Egypt will be restored. The light of hope. As the months passed, Isis grew heavy with child. Though her life was one of exile and secrecy, she found comfort in the knowledge that she bore within her the hope of Egypt. At night, she whispered lullabies to her unborn son. Sleep, falcon child, in the cradle of my womb. Dream of the skies, you shall one day rule. Fear not the storm, for you are the storm's conqueror. Fear not Set, for you are his doom. The reeds swayed gently as though echoing her song, and the waters of the Nile shimmered beneath the moonlight, carrying her words across the land. The shadow of vengeance. But even as Isis dreamed of the future, Set's shadow loomed. He had not abandoned his search, and his spies whispered that Isis was hidden somewhere in the northern marshes. Though they could not yet find her, the hunt continued. Yet Isis, undaunted, placed her trust in the gods and in her own cunning. She knew the day would come when Horus would be born, and with him the reckoning of Set. For now, she kept her secret hidden, nurturing the flame within her. The world above still mourned the death of Osiris, but in the silence of the marshes, a new dawn was preparing to rise. Chapter 11. The return to the underworld. The time of borrowed breath had passed. Osiris, once revived by Isis's devotion, no longer walked among the living. His spirit, radiant and eternal, now journeyed to the unseen realm, the Duat, the land of the dead. Though sorrow marked his departure, his path was one of destiny, for he was not to fade into oblivion. He was to be crowned as king beyond death. The crossing of the threshold, guided by Anubis, the jackal-headed guardian, Osiris' spirit descended into the twilight river that divided the world of the living from the underworld. The waters were dark, their currents swift, but Osiris walked with calm and dignity. Fear not, Anubis said, walking at his side. You are not as other men. You do not come here to be judged. You do not enter as a wanderer, you enter as a king. Behind them, the lament of Isis and Nephthys echoed faintly, fading into silence as the veil of the Duat closed. Ahead, the gates of the underworld loomed towering, carved with ancient symbols, guarded by spirits of flame and shadow, the gatekeepers of the Duat. At the first gate, a guardian with the head of a lion demanded, "Who enters the realm of the dead?" None pass unless their name is true and their purpose divine. Osiris lifted his voice, strong and resonant. I am Osiris, son of Geb and Nut, husband of Isis, murdered by Set, but restored by the gods. I come not as a shade, but as the rightful lord. The guardian bowed low, his fiery mane dimming. Pass, O Osiris, your throne awaits. At the second gate, a serpent coiled, its eyes glowing like embers. What claim have you to rule among the dead? Osiris answered. I brought life and order to Egypt. I upheld Mat, truth and balance. Though slain by treachery, my spirit endures. I come to bring justice to the Duat, as I did among the living. The serpent uncoiled and slithered aside. Pass, O righteous one. Your place is prepared. So Osiris passed through all the gates, his name spoken with reverence, his purpose undeniable. The Hall of Mat at last. Osiris came to the Hall of Mat, vast and resplendent, where the scales of truth gleamed in the dim light. Here the souls of mortals were weighed, their hearts measured against the feather of Mat. Thoth, the scribe of the gods, stood ready to record each judgment. But on this day, it was not the heart of Osiris that was placed upon the scales. It was his destiny. Mat herself appeared, radiant in white, her feather shining upon her brow. She looked upon Osiris with gentle eyes. "You were slain unjustly, O king, yet your name has not perished. Your wife's devotion and your son's conception ensure that your legacy shall endure. Take now the throne of eternity, for it is yours by right." The coronation of Osiris, a great throne of black stone and gold, was set in the hall. Anubis placed a crown upon Osiris's head, the white crown of the south and the red crown of the north, united as the double crown of Egypt. In his hands were placed the crook and flail, symbols of kingship eternal. Ra, the sun god, descended in brilliance to witness the moment. His voice thundered across the Duat. "Behold, Osiris, Lord of the Underworld. As I rule the day, so shall he rule the night. As I bring light to the living, so shall he bring justice to the dead. His throne is eternal, and his name shall never fade." All the spirits bowed, and the gods proclaimed Osiris, Unifer, Lord of the Duat, Judge of souls, Eternal King. The first judgment, as Osiris sat upon his throne, the first soul was brought before him, man who had lived unjustly, hoarding wealth and spreading lies. His heart was placed upon the scales, and it sank heavy with sin. Osiris's voice was calm but firm. "This man's heart is unworthy. Feed it to Ammit, devourer of the unjust." The beast, Ammit, leaped forward, half crocodile, half lion, half hippopotamus, and consumed the heart. The soul was cast into darkness, erased forever. Next came a woman whose life had been one of kindness, her heart balanced perfectly against the feather of Mat. Osiris smiled. "This soul is true. Let her pass into the field of reeds, where joy is eternal." Thus the judgment of Osiris began, and the Duat was filled with order. The eternal king, though Osiris no longer walked among mortals, his reign had not ended, it had only changed. No longer was he the king of the Nile. Now he was king of eternity. Every soul that entered the underworld would pass before him. Every name would be weighed against the truth. And so, though Set held the throne of Egypt in the mortal world, Osiris held a greater throne, one no usurper could touch. His legacy was secure, his power eternal. The promise of return from his throne, Osiris looked outward, beyond the veil, toward the world of the living. He saw Isis in hiding, Nephthys at her side, and within Isis's womb, the spark of Horus. A faint smile touched his lips. "My time in the world of men is over," he whispered, "but through my son I shall rise again. Through Horus, justice shall be restored, and through my throne in the Duat." Chapter 12. Osiris crowned Lord of Duat. The journey was complete. The trials had been passed. The gates of the Duat opened, and the scales of Mat affirmed his destiny. Osiris, once a mortal king, had transcended death itself. Now came the moment that would define eternity. The coronation of Osiris as Lord of the Underworld. The gathering of the gods in the great hall of Mat. The gods assembled. The pillars gleamed with celestial light, their shadows stretching long across the sacred floor. Anubis, Thoth, and Mat stood at the forefront. Horus, though still unborn in the mortal world, was present in spirit, a divine spark watching from beyond the veil. Ra, radiant as the sun at midday, entered last. His brilliance filled the chamber, banishing all darkness. Even in the realm of the dead, his presence brought warmth and power. Let all gods bear witness. Ra declared. The throne of the Duat must be given to one who upholds truth, who has faced treachery and yet endures. That one is Osiris. The crown of eternity before the throne lay the regalia of divine kingship, the crook and flail, the scepters of power and guidance. The Atef crown, adorned with feathers, and the uraeus serpent of protection. Anubis, the guide of souls, lifted the crown with reverence. Take this, Osiris, for you are no longer bound by mortal fate. You are judge eternal, the balance of the cosmos. As the crown was placed upon his brow, the hall shook with thunder. The river of the Duat surged, and the voices of countless souls rose in echo. Hail, Osiris! Hail, our King eternal! The oath of judgment, Thoth, scribe of the gods, unrolled his scroll and spoke in solemn tones. By decree of Ra and the council of the Ennead, Osiris shall preside over the dead for all eternity. His throne shall not wither, nor his name be erased. Every soul shall pass before his judgment, and none shall escape truth. Osiris rose, his form gleaming with divine radiance. His voice was steady, carrying the weight of destiny. I swear upon Mat that I shall judge all souls with fairness. The righteous shall find peace, the wicked shall be devoured, and the balance of the world shall endure. I am Osiris, Unifer, Lord of the Duat, and my reign is eternal. The coronation ritual, the gods encircled Osiris. Mat laid her feather upon his heart, sealing his bond with truth. Anubis draped him in white linen, the garments of eternity. Ra lifted his crook and flail, symbols of rulership, and placed them in Osiris's hands. Rise, O Osiris, Ra proclaimed, as king not of one land, but of all that lies beyond death. As I rule the heavens, so shall you rule the shadows. As the sun returns each dawn, so shall your name be spoken for all time. A great light burst forth, yet it was not blinding. It was serene, a light of balance, of justice, of unending reign. From that moment, Osiris was not merely a god, he was the eternal judge. The throne eternal, Osiris sat upon his throne, tall and solemn, cloaked in white and crowned with the Atef. Before him stretched the vast expanse of the Duat, rivers of night, fields of reeds, halls of fire, and paths winding through shadow. All would one day come before him. Ammit, the devourer of souls, crouched at the base of his throne, awaiting his command. Thoth stood to record every judgment. Anubis remained at his side, guiding souls to the scales. The first judgments began, and Osiris ruled with calm and unshakable authority. For every soul there was truth. For every truth there was justice, the legacy beyond death. Though Osiris was now lord of the underworld, his heart turned often toward the mortal realm. He saw Isis, hidden in the marshes, carrying his son. He saw Nephthys, guarding them with devotion. He saw Set upon the earthly throne, ruling with cruelty and fear. Osiris did not weep, for a god's tears were rivers. Instead, he spoke softly. His words carried through the veil. My reign is eternal, but my vengeance shall come through my blood. Horus shall rise, and justice shall return to the living as it reigns among the dead. The gods heard, and they knew this prophecy would shape the ages to come. The eternal balance, and so it was decreed. Ra ruled the heavens. Osiris ruled the underworld. Set ruled the earth, for now, but balance was never still. What had begun with betrayal would not end in silence. For in the womb of Isis, hope stirred. Horus, avenger of his father, was destined to challenge Set, and through that war, Egypt's fate would be decided. The final proclamation from his throne, Osiris lifted his voice one final time. I am Osiris, Lord of the Duat, eternal judge, ruler of shadows. As long as the Nile flows, as long as the sun rises and sets, my throne shall stand. Let the living remember, death is not the end, but the beginning of truth. And thus Osiris was crowned, and the Duat found its eternal king.